And the bad thing that's, like in the Middle East, Israel's creating tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people who are going to hate the United States. And they're going to hate Israel also. But because we're giving Israel the weapons to do what they're doing, we're creating a lot of people who hate us in this country.
But we're told that it's essential to our national security to do that. Do you believe that?
No, I don't see that. Just in the last 7 months, there have been probably 30 votes on Israel in the Middle East.
30?
30. There were somebody.
How many votes on the U.S. border during that time?
Oh, maybe 4 show votes that, where we know they're going nowhere in the Senate. Look, we haven't named 30 post offices. Last month, we voted like 15 or 16 times on issues related to Israel. And, I've been hit because I voted no on all of those.
Why because you hate Israel, or is there another reason?
No, because I'm against sending our money overseas. I'm against.
So I want to revisit this right here. So Tucker Carlson, and I'm taking notes as we're doing this. I'm taking notes of the concerns that Mr. Thomas Massie, House of Representatives, Kentucky, has about the funny country. The list of concerns, serious concerns, very serious concerns about their influence on America and their role, how we treat them, our relationship. This is the part that really bothers me. Tucker Carlson says, is it because you are against Israel?
Because you hate Israel, or is there another reason?
Why is the answer no? I know it doesn't reconcile with what you're telling me here. Don't put my position in this. I'm not afraid to state my position. Do not put my position into this video. My position is not coming into this video. I'm talking about Thomas Massie. I have no problem doing a separate video about outlining my position on that funny country. I want to talk about Thomas Massie here. It's not about Tucker either. Thomas Massie said, so Tucker asked him, is it because you hate the funny country?
Because you hate Israel, or is there another reason?
And without a hesitation, quickly, Thomas Massie says, no, it's not.
Because you hate Israel, or is there another reason?
No, because I'm against.
And my question is, why not? I don't understand it. I don't understand your positioning here.
Because you hate Israel, or is there another reason?
No, because I'm against sending our money overseas. I'm against starting another proxy war. I'm against sanctions because it's going to weaken the dollar. I'm for free speech. Like, all of these resolutions run afoul of those things, and that's why I can't vote for them.
Tell us what the free speech part of it.
So recently they brought a bill to Congress. And this was actually a binding bill, not a non-binding resolution. Like, this was going to have the effect of law, and people would get, prosecuted if they engaged in anti-Semitism on campuses. And the problem with this bill is they use some international definition of anti-Semitism on a website somewhere. My first question is, why don't you just put the definition in the bill? Why are you pointing to somebody's URL in a piece of legislation?
You are the Congress, right?
Right. We are the
Write
Congress.
the laws.
We should be. Instead,
it doesn't matter if the definition's in the bill or not. So it's a weird position. I don't care if you put the definition in the bill or not. It's still a violation.
We're referencing a website, that's not even, hosted in the United States. And so I went to this website, and it's got a fairly short definition, but it's also got examples of things that would be considered anti-Semitism. And some of these are actually...
The definition's not short, and the definition is very vague and can change. So they tied the bill into a definition that moves through somebody that has nothing to do with our representatives.
Passages in the New Testament, if you will, would be banned by this international definition of anti-Semitism. For instance, saying that Jews killed Jesus, which is, in the Bible, he was not welcome among his own people. Okay. And so that would be anti-Semitism. And if you engaged in that on campus, or just offered that as a thought, let's say in a classroom.
I got to read the bill again. I think it's way more encompassing than that. It's outside of schools. It's not just with schools. It's with, I have to double check that because I did a video on that. It was anyone that gets federal funding, basically.
You would be anti-Semitic, and you would run afoul of the Department of Education and some federal laws. And, there were other examples in there that were hard to believe. For instance, comparing the policies of Israel to the Nazi regime would be anti-Semitic. But the question is, what if their policies ever became the same? Is this a static definition?
Or what if we just have different opinions and your opinion is now a crime?
Right. I mean even if it's abhorrent,
even if it's wrong and stupid.
Yeah, it's still legal. It should be.
So it's okay to compare our former president, Donald Trump, to the Yahtzees, but it's not fair to compare the funny country's government to the Yahtzees.
Campus, make it illegal to quote from the New Testament, the Christian Bible. Like, how did they square that?
I think their voters let them get away with it. I mean, they don't have to square it unless they're...
But why would they want to do something like that?
Yeah, it's up to us. Ultimately, it's up to, do we care or not as voters?
Because there's a lot of pressure in Congress to vote for these things. And our Republican leadership thinks they're so smart. You know, we're in an election year and they want to bring up issues. They want to put them in front of Congress and make us vote on them, whether they're going anywhere in the Senate or not. And they want to split the Democrats. They want to show that Republicans are united and then split the Democrats. That's one of the reasons they do it. Another reason they do it is there's a foreign interest group called AIPAC that, you know, got the ear of this current speaker and demanded 16 votes in April on Israel or the Middle East. We haven't had 16 votes in April on the United States in Congress.
So what's AIPAC?
AIPAC is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. And they didn't start out as a PAC in the sense of a political action committee, but now they have a political action committee. Ostensibly, it's a group of Americans who lobby on behalf of Israel. They're for anything Israel. And they're a very effective lobbying group. They get in there. They try to get me to write a white paper as a candidate, for instance, for Congress. They almost get
on what?
On Israel. Like, and I wouldn't do it. And they said, why? And I'm like, I don't do homework for lobbyists, right? I'm like, I didn't like writing term papers at college. I'm not writing one for you.
What did they say?
They said, oh, well, here, just copy Rand Paul's term paper and put your name on it. We'll accept that. And I'm like, no, I'm still not cribbing somebody else's homework to do homework. I'm not turning in my homework for you. And what? I mean, you're laughing, but you know what? I bet
I'm not laughing.
I may be the only Republican in Congress who hasn't done homework for AIPAC. And it's just what it is. It's conditioning. They want you to do something very simple and benign, and you know, for them, they don't really grade your term paper. They just want to know that you'll do something for them. And if you'll do something for them as a candidate, you're more likely to do something for them as a congressman when you get in there. So my rift started out in 2012 when I refused to turn in an Israel term paper.
And how did they respond to that?
Well, they kind of got in my race a little too late there in the beginning, and because it was hard to tell that I was actually going to win. And when they saw I was going to win, that's when they tried to get me to do the term paper. They didn't have a political action committee at the time. They couldn't spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars against me at that time. It was just sort of like a whisper campaign to try to, hey, don't vote for him, blah, blah, blah.
That's why.
Because at that point, they sensed I wouldn't do what they wanted when I got
But what did they
Congress.
whisper against you? What were they saying about you?
Well, they would do it through, for instance, churches, evangelical churches. They've got an organization called Christians United for Israel, where they sort of co-opted evangelicals. People think it's a grassroots movement in Kentucky. It's actually a top-down movement from AIPAC, so that people who aren't even Jewish will feel like they've got to support Israel, you know, no matter what. And even if it's a secular state that funds abortions, they, you know, just sort of forget that part, and we've got to fund Israel. So they have networks. So it's more than just about the money.
So you get elected, despite their efforts. And then what happens? Do you talk to them after that?
And by the way, let me just put a little footnote here. I'm not against Israel. I've never voted to sanction Israel.
Here we go again. You see where I'm heated. This doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not against this. This time it's not even a question, because hate is a strong word. This time it's not even a question of hate. He just volunteered again. I'm not against Israel. What?
Churches.
Why?
They've got
Why
an
not?
organization called Civilians, and against me saying that, I'm bad on Israel. They didn't say don't vote for him. They just said against me saying that, I'm bad on Israel. They didn't say don't vote for him. They just said he's a bad guy. And so I said, all right, well, you're not welcome in my office anymore, because for years I invited him into my office. Let's talk this through. Let me explain to you. I'm a libertarian leaning Republican. I don't vote for people. And it's just what it is. It's conditioning. They want you to do something very simple and
Them after that.
And by the way, let me just put a little footnote here. I'm not against Israel. I've never voted to sanction Israel. I've never said anything particularly, critical of Israel, other than, for instance, right now they're bombing. They've killed 1% of the civilian population in Gaza. That's concerning to me.
Is that the take? His take. That's what he literally said. I don't have any criticism of Israel outside of unliving 1% of the population in Palestine.
So what do they do now?
You get elected 2012. Do you hear from them again?
I vote my conscience, which they won't tolerate. So they ran with their 501c4 before they had a super PAC. They were running educational advocacy ads against me saying that, I'm bad on Israel. They didn't say don't vote for him. They just said he's a bad guy. And so I said, all right, well, you're not welcome in my office anymore, because for years I invited him into my office. Let's talk this through. Let me explain to you. I'm a libertarian leaning Republican. I don't vote for foreign aid for anybody. So don't be offended when I don't vote for your foreign aid. I don't vote for wars anywhere. So don't be offended if I do that. I'm for free speech, even if it's abhorrent. And, we used to talk, but now they're banned from my office. The situation went from bad to worse. This election cycle, they spent $400,000 against me, $90,000 last fall running TV ads in my district and Facebook ads and whatnot, trying to equate me with the squad. And then this most recently, and in fact, as I'm speaking to you today, even though my election is over, they're still running hundreds of thousands of dollars of negative ads.
It's a little weird, though, because as you said, you're probably the only Republican in the House who hasn't done homework for them, who isn't on their side. And that's okay. I mean, you can have, you're a libertarian oriented Republican from Northern Kentucky. You're probably not going to single-handedly determine our foreign policy. So I think you should, but you don't.
Thank you.
And you're not going to. So why do they care? Why not just let Thomas Massie be Thomas Massie in Northern Kentucky? Like, why the need to crush you?
That's not how. Let's just say, if you feel like you own people, that's not what you accept. If I own you, if I have a dog and the dog just decides, one time not to do anything. No, I've trained you. So they own all of Congress. So it's almost similar to you ask a dog to do something 400, 500 times, and one time the dog doesn't do what you train them to do. You're going to be like, whoa, I trained you to do this. Let's practice this again. When I command you, could you imagine? They view it as a robot. They view us, our representatives, as robots or computers. Could you imagine if you booted up your computer and you said, open up Chrome, the Chrome browser, and your computer one time out of, there's some people who kind of fake dissent, but let's just say it could be a little bit more. But one time out of 535 times, the computer says, no, I don't feel like doing it. That's going to be a problem.
I don't know. I think they don't want one horse out of the barn. If one person starts speaking the truth, they're afraid it could be contagious, perhaps. Or it's like a new car. They go to Mike Johnson and they say, we want a Cadillac, Escalade with pearl white paint. And here's the rims we want. And Mike Johnson puts that bill on the floor. It passes with a unanimous vote, except for one guy votes no. And I think they feel like it's a scratch on their car. They wanted a brand new car and it got scratched by this guy named Massie. They were going to drive it over to the Senate and ask for unanimous consent. But now the senators are saying, wait.
It's not enough for the bill to pass. The bill has to be unanimous from that country.
Why this wasn't unanimous in the House? Why should we do it unanimously in the Senate? And it starts raising questions. And I think that's why they get mad.
What I find interesting is that it's not just that they disagree with your views, which they do, and I think they have an absolute right to disagree with anybody's views. We all do. But they've called you a bigot, and they call you an anti-Semite and say you're a hater and try to destroy your character. That seems like a very different level of response to me.
Right. There's no need to do that. I'm not anti-Semitic. I don't have an anti-Semitic hair in my head. Okay. I mean, I don't like AIPAC anymore. Like, I used to be neutral toward.
Yeah, they're associated with the country. So why are you separating the country from the lobbying group? There's no reason to do that. You're smarter than this. Is Thomas Massie. There is no competent person that separates that country from that lobbying group.
AIPAC, right? But
that's the only way he can justify his position of saying, I'm not against the country, but I am against the lobbying group.
I have no antagonistic feelings toward Jewish people. I am the.
What does this have to do with Jewish people? We're talking about the country, and we're talking about the lobbying interests. Jewish people hadn't even come up in so far. So I don't even know why that's coming up. But I think he's just trying to defend himself. I'm not going against Massie for that. But it's not a part of this conversation. If you want to have the conversation, I'm happy to. But we need to keep it on point. That bringing up the J team is not a part of this conversation here.
The last thing, I think I'm probably the least xenophobic person in Congress. I mean, these are the guys that my colleagues want to sanction everybody, declare them terrorist states, come up with these strongly worded resolutions. I don't vote for any of that crap, right? Unless somebody does harm to me, I'm not going to call them anything. So I get called names just for staying out of all of this political posturing.
That's disgusting, though, isn't it?
I guess
attack your character. They can disagree with your views,
right.
but to call you like the worst thing you can be in America, like, that's disgusting.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And then right after that, well, I'm not against them though.
I have a thick skin.
Yeah, apparently.
And here's the good news, Tucker. My constituents aren't falling for it. 2 weeks ago, I just had a primary and got 76% of the vote, with AIPAC running hundreds of $1,000s of ads. So it's not working against me. I think it's short-sighted on their side to do this. They're just burning money, but they're trying to make an example of me.
But they're also exposing their weakness.
I think they are. I think they've exposed a real weakness here. And, it used to be just me voting against some of these resolutions, but recently where they tried to ban passages in the New Testament, I think we got like almost 24 Republicans who said, wait, hold on.
24? That's what we're celebrating? 24?
There.
Wait, can I ask a question, though? Just a fundamental question. So the Biden administration has put a bunch of people in jail for violating something called FARA, the Foreign Agent Registration Act, 1936-ish. It's been on the books for 90 years. And it's never been enforced ever until recently, until really the Trump era and Biden era. So, but the law requires people who lobby on behalf of foreign governments to register. It's that simple. And this is the largest lobby most effective lobby in the United States on behalf of a foreign government. Are they registered with FARA?
They're not, but they should be.
Well, it's funny when you're doing the interview to ask questions you already know the answer to. It's kind of funny. Tucker obviously already knows the answer to that question. Just setting it up for Thomas Massie.
Just lobby in the most effective lobby in the United States on behalf of a foreign government. Are they registered with FARA?
They're not, but they should be.
Well, how can that be? How can they put Paul Manafort in jail, which they did, on a FARA violation, and a bunch of other people in jail on FARA violations, but the largest and most effective and most feared foreign lobby working for a foreign government doesn't have to register under the law? That's insane.
Oh, man, don't make me take their side, but I'll explain as best as I can what they're arguing.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we should take their side. I don't know.
Well, I'm going to agree with you in a second, but let me at least offer what I think is their argument. They would say, we are Americans. The members of AIPAC are Americans, and that they have the right to free speech.
Paul Manafort's an American.
Right, that's right. The effing point. Is that you're an American doing the bidding of somebody else.
So there's the good rebuttal is FARA applies not to foreigners, to foreign agents, right? Of foreign principles, agents of foreign principles.
It's Americans lobbying on behalf of foreign governments.
Correct.
That's the effing
So
point.
this is AIPAC is exactly what FARA is meant for. Now they would say, and we have a First Amendment right. Okay, well, I agree with you there,
First
but we
Amendment
also
rights
have
for what?
election laws. And it's disclosure, right? They're not, FARA doesn't say you can't say Thomas Massie's, an ignorant
I don't. Let me not digress.
hillbilly. You're allowed to say that if you want to, but we just want to check where your money's coming from. Tell us where it's coming from, what you're spending it on, and if you are lobbying on behalf of a foreign country. So they should be, now to your point, they should be registered with FARA. This is what FARA is where there's gray area, where it's an American representing a foreign country. Yes. Let's look and see if you're getting any money from that foreign country. Are you a dual citizen with that foreign country? Are you being directed by, for instance, is Netanyahu speaking to your group, advising you on your next move? Are you getting money from the military industrial complex? Because to understand AIPAC, I think it's easiest to model them as a military industrial lobby. Their biggest thing is they want more equipment, more military equipment from the United States going to Israel. In fact, when they used to be allowed in my office, the argument they would make is, oh, we're just stimulating the U.S. military industrial complex because every single penny of the 3.8 billion that they nominally get, now they're getting way more than that, but that Israel nominally gets goes to U.S. military contractors. Now that didn't make me warm and fuzzy, okay, but that is their argument. And if you notice what they advocate for, I think sometimes they advocate for things that even Israelis wouldn't advocate for.
I believe that.
They would, I think, be okay with a war with Iran, like an all-out, apocalyptic war with Iran. Whereas there are people in Israel say, "Whoa, hold on a second, we'd rather not have a war with Iran." But AIPAC does things that lead us in that direction, and so they're kind of like what the NRA is to gun owners, AIPAC is to Israel, or what the Farm Bureau is to farmers, AIPAC is to Israel. In other
represents
words,
a faction.
Right. They represent a faction, but usually a corporate faction that, and they're using the imprimatur of grassroots that
They're not even done yet. Thomas Massie went on a 20-minute rant, basically, talking about how we in Congress recently were doing more votes on Israel than America, just issues. Massie said that he got attacked for not voting in a foreign country's best interest. They attacked our free speech. Christians' beliefs would be anti-Sem. Comparing that funny country to a Yahtzee regime would be anti-Sem. But we can do that to any American that we want. They demand these votes. They tried to get Massie to write a white paper. He said no. They said, well, why don't you copy Rand Paul? Literally trying to control a congressperson who's supposed to represent Northern Kentucky. Only Republican who hasn't done homework for them. They jump into American politics and they try to run Massie out of Congress, throwing boatloads of money at him, against him. They co-opt American Christian evangelicals into supporting that funny country no matter what, even if their interests go against Christian beliefs, period. So it makes no sense on face value. They call Massie a bad guy, and they're trying to get our money to fund crazy foreign wars. Yeah, you know what? I love Israel. Yeah, that's my takeaway. Israel's a great country. Other than that, they're absolutely fantastic.
Middle MAGA.